Webster's dictionary defines the system as... Alright, I'm playing. I would never start a video with that played out phrase. Okay, but like the title says, I do want to talk about the system, and it'd be really hard to do that without first defining the system. And also Webster's is like the gold standard in terms of dictionaries. So Webster's dictionary defines the system as a powerful government or social organization that controls people's lives. Okay, I'm sorry I had to do it, but now it's over and we can move on with the video. Jeez. Alright, so like I said, I wanted to talk about the dreaded system, because a couple of weeks ago I was part of a conversation that got me thinking more about the concept. Now when I say part of, I really mean that I was straight creeping on the side while three intellectual juggernauts went back and forth about concepts way over my head. And when they asked me what I thought, I got lightheaded, and then I incoherently stumbled my way through a response, and then I pretended like my phone was ringing so I could get away. So yeah, not my proudest moment. But basically in my head it was like this. But in reality what came out was more like this.
Have you ever had a dream that you could do anything?
But now, 2 whole weeks after the question was asked, I have finally formulated a hopefully coherent response, and I would like to share that with you now. Took us a while, but we got there. Alright, so the topic of their conversation was a little bit more focused than what is the system. More specifically, they were discussing a particular country and the difficulties that country has faced in its efforts to develop. And the question that was put forth was, well, are these difficulties a result of the actions of the people, or is it the system itself which is at fault for the country's inability to progress? And the conclusion that was reached, at least temporarily, was that since the system is made up of people, then ultimately it is the people who are at fault and not the system. And to be honest, that is an extremely reasonable conclusion to reach, the logic of which I can't really argue. But I'm gonna argue it anyway. Because apparently I just have this insatiable need to be wrong about things in as public a manner as possible. So buckle up, because here we go again. Honestly, there's this subreddit called r/confidently incorrect. And after this video, they should really just consider using my face as the banner. Okay, but back to the topic. So as these juggernauts were saying, since it is the people that make up the system, it is the people who are responsible for the country's lack of development. And to illustrate this point, they used a specific example of what was occurring in this country. And for reference, let's just call this mystery country, Country A. So in Country A, there's an electricity problem. For decades now, the federal government has been unable to provide its citizens with a consistent supply of electricity. And so power outages are a regular daily occurrence. And so from this, a racket was born. Imported generators. The generators could ensure that people would still have access to electricity even when the power goes out. And so opportunistic businessmen sensed this need and took full advantage of the situation. Generators could be imported en masse and sold at marked up prices. And this led to the birth of an entire industry, because you'll need people within the customs agency to ease the process of importing the generators. You'll need a fleet of trucks to transport the generators. You'll need gasoline to run the generators. You'll need handymen who know how to install, operate, and repair the generators, etc., etc. Now, over the same time period that this racket was forming, there were countless attempts to fix Country A's distribution framework so that it could consistently provide electricity to its citizens. And each time, this industry would do everything in its power to prevent those attempts from succeeding. So to reiterate, on one hand, you have progress, providing a consistent supply of electricity to the entire country. And on the other hand, you have people, a coalition of individuals and businesses who, for whatever reason, refuse to allow this process to succeed. And so isn't it reasonable to conclude that it is the people who are standing in the way of this progress? Simply put, doesn't Country A have a people problem? And again, this conclusion makes sense, but I still disagree. And the reason I disagree is because I believe that it is actually the system that first incentivizes these people to prevent any attempt to fix Country A's electricity problem. Why? because any attempt to fix the electricity problem is now a direct threat to that industry's survival. Once the electricity is evenly and consistently distributed, the demand for imported generators would immediately subside, meaning that all the businesses and all the individuals that were involved in this racket would lose their source of income. So yes, these people, like every other citizen, would now enjoy a constant supply of electricity, but it would only come at the cost of their livelihood. And in a system where your ability to survive is entirely dependent upon your ability to make money, does it not make sense that people would prioritize their own source of income over the literal progress of the entire country? Is that so hard to imagine? I mean, of course I want to appeal to these people's sense of altruism. This is your country. These are your people. Please step aside so that we may all take a step forward. But how can I ask them to do that in this system where their stepping aside could literally mean their very survival? If I try to think about it from their perspective, I can imagine them saying, look, I have found a way to survive in this system. My bills are paid and my loved ones are cared for. After the supposed progress, can you guarantee me a job that is as lucrative as the one that I have now for the same amount of work? Can you guarantee that I'll be able to feed myself and my loved ones? Can you guarantee that I'll be able to afford to send my children to school? That I'll be able to pay their medical bills? Because I can do all of that right now. But it looks like in your proposal, I'm gonna lose all of that for electricity. So I'm sorry, but in my best Randy Jackson voice, yeah, that's gonna be a no from me, dog. So I went back to one of my intellectual juggernauts slash walking encyclopedias, and I asked if one of these proposals to fix Country A's electricity had ever included provisions for these racketeers. And to the best of their knowledge, they couldn't recall an instance where that had happened. At least not publicly. Because how in the world could you do that? To go to these individuals who for decades now have been exploiting the entire country for their own personal gain and offer them amnesty. I mean, I have to admit that I understand and even empathize with the perceived ridiculousness of such an action. From the perspective of the exploited, that would have to seem like a slap in the face. But I also have to admit that given this system that we all live in, that pervades our every decision, I still believe that this step towards reconciliation is the appropriate and necessary action to take. And I think Dave Chappelle said it best.
Because the end of apartheid should have been a bloodbath by any metric in human history, and it wasn't. And the only reason it wasn't is because Desmond Tutu and Mandela and all these guys figured out that if a system is corrupt, then the people who adhere to the system and are incentivized by that system are not criminals. They are victims. And that the system itself must be tried. But because how systems work is so compartmentalized as far as information, the only way we can figure out what the system is if everybody says what they did. Tell them how you participated.
If a system is corrupt, then the people who adhere to that system and that are incentivized by that system are not criminals. They are victims. And the system itself must be tried. And so now, with that perspective, let us return to the original question. Does the blame for Country A's inability to progress lie with its people, or does it lie with the system? Hopefully by now you know my answer, but I do encourage everyone to go out and try to find their own. But regardless of whether you agree or disagree with me, I hope you can at least see where I'm coming from. And if you don't, well, then I hope you step on a Lego. Okay, I'm joking, relax. But for real, if you don't see where I'm coming from, that's completely fine, because as I say ad nauseum, identifying what you believe to be false will eventually lead you to what you believe to be true. So if you think I'm wrong, that's cool. Shout it from the rooftops. And that's fine. I won't get mad or offended, but I will be praying on that Lego. Okay, but seriously, jokes aside, I cannot thank you enough for hearing me out, and I truly wish you the best going forward. I hope that one day you will be free to make decisions without the omnipresent influence of the system bearing down on you. Because in my opinion, it is only then that we will see the true nature of humanity shine and flourish. But until that day comes, I wish you the strength to carry on. But alright, that's it for this one. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.